Ooh, and are we live? Let's double check. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. I'm waiting for a notification on Facebook that I am live. You know, it's always a delay. There's always so much going on. Oh, it looks like I am live. Let's see. Oh, yes. Let's check the volume. There's always so much. Yay. Live. I'm so glad it works. And you know, I'm streaming live on Janome Canada Facebook and Janome Sewing Machines Facebook and Janome Canada, Janome HQ YouTube channel and Janome America YouTube channel. So if it all works correctly. So yay. Hello, everyone. It is great to see you. I wish I could see who is here. You know, I'm on my phone, so it's a little more condensed. But yes, hello, everyone. It is so fabulous to see you all. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, how's my time? I know yes, right up to 3 o'clock. Fabulous. It is wonderful to see you all. My name is Michael Smith. I'm the National Education Manager of Janome Canada. And yes, my voice is a little hoarse today, but I'm hoping it's going to last through this live because, you know, nothing will stop me from sharing the Janome love. Oh, now I can see finally comments. There's always a delay. So Pat is here and wonderful. And Pat says, good to be here. Thank you. It is so wonderful to be here too. Yes. Oh, first time here for Bev. Well, hello. Welcome to Janome Sewing Machines, Facebook Live. But yes, with the advantage of technology, now we're live in Janome Canada Facebook, as well as Janome Canada's Janome HQ YouTube and Janome America's YouTube channel. So that way we can share more of the Janome love, whatever platforms you're on all around the world. So lovely. Oh my gosh, and Brian's here from Jacksonville, Florida. Wonderful. Oh, Virginia's first time here as well. Well, welcome. This is wonderful. Again, I'm Michael Smith, National Education Manager of Janome Canada. And what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about all those decorative stitches that we have in our Janome sewing machines, regardless of what model it is. There's so many available, and everybody always says, what do I do with them? When will I use them? So we're going to flip around here. Oops. As soon as I can change, you know, they always change things a little. There we go. I just want to flip my camera around so we can see. Ooh, I think just back camera. There we are. So we can see some beautiful decorative stitching. Now today I'm going to be sewing on the fabulous Janome Skyline S5, but again, it doesn't really matter what machine it is. Look at all those beautiful decorative stitches here in Skyline S5. We have 5 different modes of stitching. Mode 1 and Mode 2, we've got all those decorative stitches. And again, a number of them are built into all Janome machines. They just seem to get more and more and more. So decorative stitches, an excellent project to use is this beautiful sewing machine cover, which is a project you can find on sewforhome.com. as well as check our Janome Canada websites and Janome America website, the Inspire tab. They have a lot of Sew for Home projects, as well as free projects from our Janome Canada education team and Janome America education team. Oh, and my sister Deb is here. Hello, hello. So yes, you can find lots of projects like this fabulous sewing machine cover and a great excuse to use your decorative stitches, some of the editing capabilities of your machine. You might have a reverse mirror image button. Isn't that fun? And then again, a perfect excuse of, oh, for example, some of these buttons were on some of the clothes I had as a kid. Isn't that cute? My mother saved them all. So a great time to use decorative stitches here to embellish your sewing machine cover. But, you know, even things like, oops, even things like this pocket, for example, the pattern said a straight stitch to create these 2 separate pockets, but instead I used a perfect opportunity for a decorative stitch. How about in your tote bags? Even it's the inside pocket lining, no one may see it, but what a great little added embellishment. Use decorative stitches. This is one of the satin stitches but I used the elongation function that is built into a number of machines. This sewing machine cover was for the 6700 specifically, is what I stitched it on. And that elongation function is built into a number of Janome machines, and that satin stitch specifically is built into a number of Janome machines. So that's a great time to use a decorative stitch that is functional as well as very beautiful. Now, how about on this binding? Can you see very closely along the binding edge, there is a blanket stitch. Well, instead of going onto the binding, I decided to flip it around the other way, and it's all along the bottom edge of the sewing machine cover. But it does double duty on the wrong side there. Do you see that blanket stitch is holding down the binding? So I sewed the binding onto the right side and flipped it to the back. The back side of the binding is bigger, so it caught that edge, that folded edge caught in that blanket stitch. So again, it is a very pretty edge to the sewing machine cover, but it's also very functional. It's attaching that binding. Another good example of where to use a decorative stitch. Again, I could have edge stitched this pocket down, but instead I did some, maybe you'll see that blanket stitch. I'll pull it apart. Can you see that blanket stitch that I used? And it could be any decorative stitch to sew down that pocket. Again, it could be a regular straight stitch for that edge stitching, but why not embellish it and do something different, use a decorative stitch? Oh, that's wonderful. Sharon from Arizona is also first time here, so that's wonderful. Welcome. There are so many things that hopefully we can share and learn together when technology works correctly. So yes, again, decorative stitches, we can use them in so many places. Now, when we do applique, again, a lot of the times we're familiar with, there's some of the blanket stitch options that are built into a number of Janome machines for applique. But how about, oh, this little triangle stitch here, the satin stitch, that is also built into a number of Janome machines. So how about you're doing applique with some decorative stitches, more than just the blanket stitch, and there it is on the back side. So isn't that cool? That just adds something a little bit extra special. And same thing on the binding. Look, there we go. There's a decorative stitch built into a number of machines. It's just a straight stitch, and then it goes to the left and to the right, and straight stitch down, left and right. Perfect stitch for, again, attaching the binding. It doesn't have to be just a regular straight stitch. So why not use some of your decorative stitches? Now, here is a quick little easy project I made out of 2 hand towels, actually. But I made this little drawstring bag. It's a shoe bag, or it could be a great overnight bag for the kids going off to summer camp or a sleepover. We can personalize. We've got a number of fonts built into many Janome machines, but we can personalize and again use some of the decorative stitches here with the name. Again, blanket stitch is traditional for the applique, but how about, again, some of our machines have got these beautiful satin stitches, and specifically the elongation function, as I mentioned. This little stitch is the original stitch, but here is some elongation of that same stitch. These wings of this dragonfly are the same stitch. It's the same satin stitch as the head. It's just been elongated. So isn't that cool? So we can go to Janome Life blog, type that in your browser, and you'll find lots of information about decorative stitches, little tips and tricks, this elongation function. Check your instruction manual if you have the elongation capability in your machine, and you can make things like that cute little dragonfly. So again, we could just do the name, the person's name on this bag, but why not embellish it with some of these decorative stitches? And again, we can create a whole label. This is not going to go missing easily, especially put a little time and effort. It only took a few minutes, but it just makes such a difference adding that little bit of embellishment. So you're having some fun, doing some different things on your machine. Now, how about using decorative stitches? Again, when I made this little zippy pouch, when I added these 2 pieces of fabric together, Most of the time we would be edge stitching our seam allowance down, and edge stitching is about, an eighth of an inch from the fold of the fabric, and it's designed to hold the seam allowances down. But how about use a decorative stitch? In this case, this kind of meandering big zigzag, it really flattens out that seam allowance. So it just makes the bag a little sleeker, less bulky. Imagine doing this on garments. You don't just have to do edge stitching and top stitching with a straight stitch. How about some of the decorative stitches completely flattens that seam allowance down, holds it together, adds a little bit more durability to these two seams of where these two fabrics are joined together. So this is a very beautiful decorative stitch, but it's very functional as well. So isn't that cool? So simple on your tote bags, especially nice and flat seam allowances. Great. Another time, great to use some of your decorative stitches. Now this, if you want to do some quick, easy summer decorating, I wanted this big, long table runner for my outdoor table. I couldn't find one. I didn't really want to take the time to make one from scratch. Well, instead, I went to the discount store and got 3 placemats. There's the size of one placemat. I got 3 placemats, and what I did was butt them together. Maybe you'll see my yellow satin stitch. Again, I use that elongation function. You'll see it better on the back side. There we go. It's like a leaf shape satin stitch with that elongation function, so it's nice and big. It didn't need to be a tight stitch going through all this thickness, but didn't that work out perfectly? They're just butted together, and boom, now I have a big table runner for my table, and all it is 3 ready-made placemats with that elongation stitch, but it could be any decorative stitch built into your Janome sewing machine. How perfect is that? Yes, we could do this with a regular old zigzag, but again, we've got all those decorative stitches available. Why not use them? So that's an option. And then, yes, how about, the jelly roll rugs? We all love them. Or actually, this is a cutoff I made my sister years ago. I made her a bag with the same technique as the jelly roll rugs of folding in your strips, and there's batting in between. And typically you zigzag these all together, and that looks fine. But again, we've got all those decorative stitches. So I thought, let's play for my jelly roll rug in this case, or it could be, again, a tote bag, it could be a trivet for your table, whatever. But let's use some of these. In this case, these are satin stitches that I was experimenting to hold our pieces together more than just a regular zigzag, and made this whole jelly roll rug using the decorative stitches built in. In this case, I made this on the 9450. That little, I call it a chicken scratch, or it's a feather stitch, is built into so many Janome machines. It worked out beautifully. Again, we've got a stitch on the right strip and a stitch on the left strip. So that worked really beautiful. Again, more decorative stitching here in the red, where the stitches go to the right and to the left. So we want to make sure to lock them together. However, make sure we can ultimately edit a lot of our decorative stitches. We can make it wider or more narrow. We can make the stitch leg longer or closer together. You have to be very careful though. In this case, I made this stitch a little too long. It was nice and wide, 9mm wide. So part of it went on the right strip and part of it went on the left strip here, but I had too much length in between. I lengthened it too much, and that creates too much of a gap. So it's literally just holding by a thread. So this is where you do your little experimentation and play around with it a little so you really get the results you desire. These decorative stitches here, they worked out beautiful. This is going to be a nice, strong jelly roll rug, and whatever you want to use this for, a tote bag, nice and strong. And again, using those decorative stitches that are built in to so many machines, you can really have a lot of fun. And then, yes, for applique, this is a beautiful, it's a quilt in a day pattern called Magic Vine. And instead of just, and it's got all this applique, oosh, it took forever. Maybe one day I'll finish quilting it. But yes, all this regular traditional blanket stitch is what we usually will use for applique. But when I was doing the stems, I thought I'll have a little bit more fun and I'll use some decorative stitches, some non-traditional applique stitches. And then when I did this applique here of this flower, in the petals, each of the petals, do you see the little rose stitched in each individual petal? And then, of course, I had to do a little more with this little ziggy-zaggy stitch. It's just so fun. You experiment. And again, the stems here, I could have done a blanket stitch on one side and a blanket stitch on the other, but instead I use, this is one of the honeycomb stitches, or they're in the heirloom category, depending on what your machine is. So you can really have a lot of fun, more than just your regular blanket stitch. And here again, I did the blanket stitch around the petals, but then I added in these little floral decorative stitches in the machine. And then again, another stem with a stitch down the middle. So it actually saves some time as well, that we didn't have to do one stitch down and one stitch, down each side. So, oh, and then yes, this is kind of what started the whole springboard, especially for the summer. The kids need, a little hat. You're out on the golf course, maybe for yourself, or the kids go to summer camp, they go on a sleepover. This was a cute little hat I purchased from the discount store. You don't always have to, oh, Sean is here. Oh my gosh, hello. Yes, that you don't always have to start from scratch, that you can take a commercially made, ready-made hat in this case, and ooh, look at that. Definitely much more special, definitely much more unique. And the kids are more than likely, this hat, may easy to fall off and get left behind, but I think the kids are going to definitely want to look after this hat a lot more with all of this beautiful decorative stitches. We can, of course, on the band, on the inside, oh yes, add lettering that's built into a number of machines. Now, the cool thing about with the hat here and this band, it's already thick and it's got extra interfacing in between. I didn't need to add an additional stabilizer. So that was really cool. Definitely a good time-saving element. And here on the back side of my hat looks as beautiful as the front side, because again, that thick band, it's a twill weave, like a denim fabric. So it's nice and sturdy. There'd be an interfacing in between here. So I didn't need to add an extra interfacing or an extra stabilizer. They stitched out beautifully. Now, even the functional element of some decorative stitches in this hat, as these two seam, this top seam and this side seam were sewn along here, some of the fabric wasn't caught within the seam allowance, so it was fraying. Well, instead, I decided I'm just going to do a satin stitch, again in this case, slightly elongated, in between that seam, and it worked out beautifully, that it locks in those raw edges. And again, for applique would work out great. These decorative stitches are too utilitarian. They're functional, they're two-purpose. Ooh, they're functional as well as being decorative. On the inside of my hat there, you can see, and because of, again, this extra band, we didn't need to add any extra stabilizer, so it worked out beautifully. So we can really embellish, do a lot with our decorative stitches, and really have a lot of fun. Again, today I'm on the Skyline S5, and primarily when we're doing decorative stitches, we need our satin stitch foot, which is the F foot, or the open toe satin stitch foot is the F2 foot. The F foot has got the little red triangle, which is center needle position. So that can help us line up our applique. We've got the groove on the underside, so allows the decorative stitches to form. So I'm going to use that foot for a lot of this decorative stitching. Now, also, when we get into our jelly roll rugs and our tote bags, where we've got these thicker strips, sometimes the patterns, call for a denim needle. Well, I didn't have one when I did my jelly roll rug. So instead, when I was doing my decorative stitches, and look how beautiful they look, especially with the Multicolor thread. Go check with your Janome dealer what thread they have. The multicolor thread looks so beautiful. As well with your decorative stitches, maybe a perfect time to use your embroidery thread, even though we're not embroidering, but the embroidery thread is great for your decorative stitches in your regular sewing machine. So again, maybe your machine has this stitch. It's typically in the heirloom category. And again, look how good and strong that is. So typically when we're doing these strips, and again, the pattern calls for a denim needle. I didn't have one. I was using my usual red tip size 14 needle. I use these for 99% of my sewing, but I found I did get some skipped stitches going through all this thickness. So instead, I switched to the fabulous Janome purple tip needle that has that flared cobra head just below the eye of the needle, and that separates the fibers of the fabric so the needle thread and bobbin thread can intersect more readily in between layers, so it will eliminate skipped stitches. So it's the perfect needle to use for these thicker layers. And I'm just going to butt up my strips here. Extra high presser foot lift on our Skyline S5. Don't you love that? Now, again, when we do our decorative stitches, we can select any one that we want. In this case, I'll do some of these bridge stitches, these heirloom stitches. I'll do, again, that maybe, stitch number, I'll do stitch number 48. And again, maybe hard for you to see there. Stitch number 48, boom. Again, we've got our width at 9. Our length is set at 2.5. That's as long as we can go. We could go a little shorter. Your machine will tell you what you're capable of doing, which is why I love these smart machines. So again, when we do our strip, and again, away we go. Like, it's a great time to use these decorative stitches. There we go. Make sure we got it lined up. And again, I always recommend doing your little test sample first, because we want to make sure the decorative stitch is wide enough so it'll go on the right strip and then go on the left strip to make it really secure. And this is where, again, we don't want to make it too long. Most of the time, again, we can't make the decorative stitches too long. In some cases you can, and then in which case you don't want to have a little hole. But again, how beautiful, and how beautiful does that look? Again, with that multicolor thread, and boom, that's a nice secure jelly roll rug. So again, think of it beyond just a regular old zigzag. Look how cool. I used just black bobbin thread. So, I mean, that looks fine. But doesn't that look better? So again, use your decorative stitches with your beautiful thread, your Janome embroidery thread, or again, your Madeira multicolor thread. Check with your Janome dealer what threads they have. So that is a good time to use them for your decorative stitches. Now here, again, applique. Yes, I could use the regular blanket stitch, but instead I was having so much fun with that elongation. This is the stitch. This is elongated 5 times. And here I was experimenting with more of these stitches. So for elongation, with some of your decorative stitches, they're typically the satin stitches. So does your machine have a little button here, like Skyline S5 has a E button for elongation? So they're typically the satin stitches. So I'll do 71, mode 1, stitch number 71. It's this little satin stitch leaf shape. So when we click on elongation, that's what will elongate. So I will just stitch out the regular stitch so you can see. And I happen to be using my knee lifter here, which is included in Skyline S5. Hands-free. I don't need to raise and lower my foot this way. I'm using the knee lifter, which is just down here. So there, when I compress this knee lifter, that will raise and lower the foot. So it's great when we're doing applique in particular, so then we can stop and pivot our fabric hands-free. So then when I do this elongation, this is the stitch as it is. where it's not going to be elongated. It's just stitched out the way it normally is. And I'll use my knee lifter. So there, it's just this little, just that little leaf shape. Really cute. And again, great for this raw edge applique, so we don't have to worry about the edges being exposed. So now I want to elongate. So I hit E, so I can elongate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go all the way up to 5. Now you can check our Janome Life blog. There is lots about, again, decorative stitches, lots about elongation. When we're stitching our decorative stitches as well, do you know if we hit the lock button while we're stitching, the machine will stitch one repetition of your decorative stitch. It'll just sew one of them and then it will stop automatically, as opposed to just going more and more and more and more. So start stitching and then hit your lock button, and that's going to stop your stitch, stop stitching after that stitch pattern. So now I can trim my threads, use my knee lifter. Look at how cool that is. And again, I could use a blanket stitch, nothing wrong with a blanket stitch. But again, we have all these decorative stitches. So there is the original. Here is that leaf 5 times elongated. It got right into the corner, which is perfect. And now I can do the other edge. So isn't that cool? And again, by using that multicolor thread, doesn't that add a beautiful element to our applique? So it's really, really fun. Do something different. Now, when you're doing all these different stitches, I love doing these little samples. Again, we always have scraps, so cut them all up and do these little samples. So here I did this little blanket stitch, you see. So it's mode number 1 in the Skyline S5. It's stitch number 44. It was a 1 length and a 1 width. So now I could put this in a page protector and keep it in my binder, and I've got it for reference of what that stitch looks like. Or again, stitch it on your sewing machine cover. So here is a traditional blanket stitch for my stem applique. Again, it was mode 1, stitch number 37. It was a 3.5 width and a 2.5 length. Now, as a little tip when you're doing your applique, again, make sure that you do the lowest layer first, and then you lay your other layer on top. In this case, my stem here, I did this one first, then this one, then laid this one on top. And this is where I decided, instead of doing a blanket stitch down one side and a blanket stitch down the other, I just stitched this little leaf pattern right through the middle. So it saved time, and in which case that was in mode 2, stitch number 44. It was a 9 width, because we've got a 9mm wide machine, and a 2.5 length. So isn't that cool? So yes, to save time, we can do these decorative stitches. Again, instead of blanket stitching one side and blanket stitching the other side, let's just choose, I will choose mode 2 and stitch number 54, which we can then see on our LCD screen. We can go to mode 2 and stitch number 54. There it is, 9mm wide. So I know it's going to be nice and wide for my stem. I'm running my stem down in between the toes here of my foot. So I've got, again, great visibility. Use that handy knee lifter. Now, again, other machines have that auto presser foot lift button. So this is a great time to use that auto pivot feature where the needle stays in the fabric when you stop sewing and the presser foot raises automatically. Skyline S5, again, we don't have that feature, but we do have the knee lifter. So there's always a way around it and things to use. Again, you utilize what you have with your machine. Our Janome machines come with so much and can do so much. We just have to experiment to use them. So isn't that cool? And especially there, it's a little curly Q leaf. And again, with that multicolor thread, And it's perfectly fine. Again, it's secure, so I could use this quilt, wash and dry it, whatever, no problem. If it's a garment, wash and dry it, no problem. No edges are gonna buckle or ravel. Again, stabilizer on the backside. Look how nice and flat everything is. We definitely, with the decorative stitches, this is a tearaway, and we might use even 2 layers, or you might use a heat iron-on interfacing as well, or maybe a fusible fleece, you know, something like that. Again, check Janome Life blog. There's a ton of information about stabilizers. And then I also wanted to show, when we're doing things like couching, this yarn, for example, couching is basically like zigzagging yarn traditionally, but instead, why don't we use, again, do you see the beautiful decorative stitching? So it's an applique, but I'm also couching, and I'm using the fabulous L2, which is the wide groove beading foot. Now, instead of the beads, I'm going to use I'm not using a string of pearls. Instead, boom, I'm going to use this yarn. So double check with your Janome dealer. Again, we've got the wide groove beading foot and the narrow groove beading foot. They're 9mm for my Skyline S5. You double check with your dealer, again, based on what machine you have. So in this case, I can see by my notes, I'm using stitch number 47 in mode number 1. Yes, stitch number, oops, I'm in the wrong mode. I need to go into mode 1, stitch number 47. This is why I like to write little notes on my little sample here. So then as I'm doing my applique with my heart, now, but I'm also embellishing it by doing this yarn couching, but instead of just a regular old zigzag, I'm using a decorative stitch. Now, anytime we're going to use the pivot function, again, perfect with that knee lifter. And when we pivot, we want to make sure when we're doing this applique, the needle is in the right hand position. Then I'm going to slowly pivot my fabric. I've got that beautiful wide groove for my yarn. So again, how cool is that? Just another stitch again. Oh, I could do this all day, but again, my time goes by so fast. So here we go, just so you can see. So how fun is that? So we can add more embellishment. So we're doing this applique, but we're also adding the yarn, and then we're doing the decorative stitch. So we're just adding more. We're just doing more. And with all that multicolor thread, that really looks beautiful. Now, lastly, and very quickly, when we're talking about, all these decorative stitches, a great foot to use is the FB foot, which is the border guide foot. And yes, it comes in 9 and 7mm, so double check with your Janome dealer. It's got all these little lines here that'll help you line up your decorative stitches. There's the groove in the bottom side, just like your regular F foot for your decorative stitches. And again, go on our Janome Life blog and you'll find a ton of information, a ton of blogs about your border guide foot. Perfect to use all your decorative stitches. How about you combine them? So with this we call stack stitches. So we've got this ladder stitch in the middle is one stitch, but then here I've got another stitch right butted up next to it. And same here, this is the heirloom stitch here, and then I have mirrored, if we've got editing capabilities to mirror image the decorative stitches, you just stitch ultimately down one side and the other. So we stack them together. So it's very fun to use, and we could do anything. I'll do stitch number 56 very quickly. And then, so we can line up with some of the grooves in our foot, the little lines of our border guide foot that will help us position these rows and rows and rows of decorative stitches evenly without marking the fabric. It works really good. And again, more information on Janome Life blog. And I did a video with the A to Z with Janome series on the Janome HQ YouTube channel. I did the FB border guide foot for the F episode. So isn't that cool? Again, we're stacking all of our stitches together. So this could ultimately be, you know, a braid in itself. We could embellish this, or maybe this is a tie for a garment, a tie for even a bathrobe or something. And again, we can just isolate those stitches, but combine them. So this could be a whole trim in itself. So we can really make more of the decorative stitches by combining them. And again, that border guide foot works beautifully. So let me flip, whoops, let me flip around. That was the wrong button. There we go, flip around, here we go. So thank you everyone so much for joining me today. It is absolutely fabulous to be back here in the Janome Sewing Machines Facebook page. It is great to see you all. Oh my gosh, from Germany, hello. Fabulous, I absolutely love to share the Janome love. Thank you everyone so much for joining me today, and have fun playing with your decorative stitches. Happy sewing. Bye.